This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? How do they do that? Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards earn their keep and which are just heavy, shiny metal, and planning group trips that won't ruin your budget or your friendships. So travel smarter and spend less. That's the key with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com.
These are the days in our lives that we remember. It's not all the days that went so well. It's the days when you're miserable, when you think you can't go one more step, and then you swear at somebody, and then you keep going. Those are the days that form our spines. They have formed my spine.
Kris Tompkins is in the business of changing the world, and she is not messing around. She's the former longtime CEO of outdoor apparel brand Patagonia, and she and her late husband, Doug Tompkins, co-founded Tompkins International Conservation, which has preserved millions of acres of wilderness across several countries, including the creation of one of the largest swathes of contiguously protected land on the planet out there in Patagonian, Chile. And that's where we're going today. I've been an admirer of Kris for ages, and I'm incredibly honored to have been able to speak with her on the show. So if you're curious about one of the wildest places on earth, and you should be, it's amazing, or you just want to hear about the life of one of the most inspiring people I've ever met, you're in for a great time. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to Armchair Explorer, where the world's greatest adventurers tell their best stories from the road. My name's Aaron Miller. I'm a travel writer and your host. And today is a really special one. If you don't already know the name Tompkins Conservation, you've likely heard about their work. Over the years, they've protected more than 15 million acres of wild parklands in Chile and Argentina, and they're only getting started. They also helped to establish something called the Route of Parks, which passes through much of this protected land. I was lucky to explore it a few years ago. I was writing a couple of articles about it for National Geographic Traveler and others, and it is one of the greatest adventure road trips in the world. So you're going to hear a few little snippets from me along the way too about that journey. And if you enjoy this episode or just love books, Patagonia recently published a gorgeous one about Kris and her team's success in rewilding Patagonia National Park, the crown jewel of the Route of Parks. It's called Patagonia National Park, Chile. The photos are ridiculously stunning. I walk past my coffee table every day and see it there and just smile, dreaming of adventures to come. And you can find it wherever books are sold, or head over to patagonia.com and search up books. There's lots of good ones up there. And you can also learn more about Kris and her foundation, Tompkins Conservation, at tompkinsconservation.org. We're going to have all this information on the show notes, of course. And while you're at it, follow me too. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Armchair Explorer Podcast. The website is armchair-explorer.com. We have a newsletter there. Check that out. But the best and most amazing thing you can do if you enjoyed today's episode, if you like the show, is talk about it. Leave a review, subscribe, post about it, tell your friends, your family, some random stranger you meet when shopping in Patagonia. We're building a community of people who love the outdoors, who love exploring and want to live life to the full. If that sounds like you, come and hang out. We're going to get on well at Armchair Explorer Podcast. But don't worry about that right now, because we're about to step back in time. Kris grew up on a ranch in Southern California, falling in love with nature through early morning surf sessions and afternoons spent rock climbing. She first met Yvon Chouinard, Patagonia's founder, when she was a teenager. As he describes it, she was a 15-year-old beach bum surfer that had just been thrown out of class for refusing to wear shoes to school. Nonetheless, he hired her and she joined the Patagonia team in the lowest possible rank, working her way steadily up to the CEO's chair, where she steered the ship of the anti-corporation, as it's known, diligently for years, helping to steward many of its environmental practices and awareness. But as time passed by, she began to get an itch.
I was fine for probably 20 years of my career at Patagonia. And it was only in the last 3 years when I began to feel kind of like I was suffocating. It didn't have to do with my work and the teams and the day-to-day life at Patagonia. I mean, I had just an incredible life there. It was me, my own sense of I have to do something else, because I started so young. And by the time I was 40, I really began to think, wow, I'm going to be sitting in this chair until I'm 60 or maybe 70. And that really put me into a tailspin in the sense of not panicking, but just really starved for something. And then also being unable to imagine what would I possibly do that could top what I was doing right there.
And while this storm of restlessness was brewing, Kris traveled down to Chile to see Patagonia itself, remarkably for the first time after 20 years as the company's CEO. And it was there, in the midst of those brewing clouds, that her life would change forever.
So that's where Doug and I ran into each other. And he was just at that time starting to think how he would commit the last third of his life toward conservation. And so we met and fell in love just at the time that he was on this new road in his own life. And the combination of falling in love with each other really helped me define, oh, I can do this. There is something I want to do as badly as I would want to stay at Patagonia. And the early years, I moved to South Chile, to the tip of the fjord, at very extreme climate, roadless area, no electricity, no phones, obviously no internet. It was exactly what I wanted but could never have imagined. It really was so compelling, and I had that same feeling when I was on an expedition to Tibet in the mid-'80s, that just overwhelming sense of space.
When Charles Darwin stopped in Patagonia during his voyage around the world, he wrote these words: "No one can stand in these solitudes unmoved and not feel that there is more in man than the mere breath of his body." Patagonia has that effect on you. There are places here where human beings have not yet stood, blank spots on the map, an emptiness that fills your soul.
It was the most intense experience, I think, to this day. Nothing else compared to those first few years, getting around in small planes, just iffy boats. It was the real deal, I have to say. I'm just so grateful still. I'm about to be 74, and I'll always look back at that time and kiss the ground that I was able to have that kind of intensity in my life. There is no question that when you put yourself out into these very extreme circumstances or places on Earth, you are changed for the rest of your life. Half the time you can't explain in any language what's happened to you. And I think that's actually a good sign when you can't explain something, because you're seeing things through a lens that's so raw and usually, frankly, quite harsh, that it brings out the genes in us that are most ancient, the most fundamental. And that's why I like it so much, because I don't really want to have a simple life. I'm not interested in going on vacations and sitting out at the sea or so. I like to go to Antarctica. I like to go in these places that make you feel unbelievably tiny.
One day, as they were living on the edge of that wild, roadless fjord, Doug heard about a piece of land that was up for sale nearby. And when he visited it, he was stunned. It was deep, lush, and ancient, the kind of forest that was unrivaled in the world. Groves of giant alerces, the cousins of the sequoia, had stood here untouched for thousands of years, their canopies and leaves and branches woven together as if by some giant hand. Doug had never seen a forest like it, and so then and there he decided to buy it and protect it from development, and it would go on to become Pumalin Douglas Tompkins National Park. It was a monumental achievement. But for these two wild souls, well, they were just getting started.
And then another piece of property came up for sale, and these are all from private owners, people who are looking for a buyer. And pretty soon it became a possibility that you could really glue together properties that, when they stand together as one entity, you really saw that you could protect vast forests and never see them cut, that you could protect large grasslands, that you can protect large wetlands in northern Argentina. That was really the genesis of it. And once you get going on something and you find a rhythm, it's not something that you want to stop. And parallel to all this, of course, you're meeting young people and building teams made up of people who wanted to have a wildlife and create parklands for the public. This was kind of unheard of in the way that we were doing it. For us, the question of acquiring so much land, we always understood that these needed to be places where all are welcome. Because in the absence of that, you're just essentially private landowners sitting on the jewels of a country. And so that part was always clear to us.
They didn't know at that time, not straight away, exactly how their vision would develop. As deep ecologists, they believe that all life has intrinsic value, that it doesn't have to be preserved to some end or for human use, but for its own sake, for its beauty. But through the years, as more and more land became available, their vision grew. What if these isolated pieces of wilderness could be connected? What if they could create something for the people of Chile? What if, rather than this land being sold for development, it could be preserved for all time? What if they could use it to show a new vision for economic development, one based on sustainability and conservation and connected to local communities? And then they found the place that would bring it all together.
Doug and I still am, sort of workaholics. Because we do things that we love, we've always been so grateful for that. It allowed you to be all in, no limits. So anyway, we started taking April off every year, packing up the car, and we'd go off for a month and go through Patagonia, all over the place, camping, just going around. And we used to cross the border from Chile into Argentina through the Valle Chacabuco. And in 1994, we're camping out in a little grassy area somewhere in the Estancia Valle Chacabuco, which was the owner of the entire valley. And we were just sitting there eating, drinking wine, thinking, God, this would make a great national park. This is kind of beat up at the moment because of 100 years of grazing, but you could so easily look beyond what we were seeing in those days, that this is, in any country, this was world class. This was shockingly complex, and rivers and lakes and streams and forests and rock and ice, and then, hundreds of thousands of acres of Patagonia steppe grasslands. So we just kind of put it in the mental file, and we went back there every year. We always spent a few days in April there. So we kind of really reinforced that original thought.
And then one day, Kris and Doug heard that this land, their special valley, was going up for sale too. The vision was coming into focus. Kris knew it was now or never.
I just thought, we have to go for this. I wasn't completely sure how, and it was very contentious because it was the third largest estancia in Chile, very emblematic. And there were people in Santiago who said, over our dead bodies will the Tompkins buy this historic estancia. And a year went by, and I thought I'd lost it, that I wasn't going to make it. And Doug always said, no, Bertie, it's never over. Stay in there. Anyway, obviously, we were able to pull the rabbit out of the hat and make the purchase. And people come up to me, all kinds of different people who are staying there, and they say, we've never been to a place like this. Because it's still so wild and untethered in a way. You can't fall in love with something unless you know it, and you won't protect something unless you love it.
This valley, their valley, would go on to become the crown in the string of jewels they were connecting and the centerpiece of their vision. It would become Patagonia National Park, the place where the world would come to know Patagonia, to immerse themselves in its raw beauty, to fall in love with it as they had.
The Valle Chacabuco Valley is the low valley, the principal valley, and that's probably pretty easy to imagine with a beautiful river running down it. But the Lagunas Altas hike is, at least for me, and I'm a fast hiker, but the first 2 hours of that hike are uphill, definitely, and I'm always swearing at whoever I'm walking with. Oh, God, I hate this section of this trail. And like all good things in life, those are the hikes you remember, is that's just such a pain to get up. And then all of a sudden you top out on a series of rolling, spiky, lakey rock and ice that turns to red rock, at least Patagonia's version of red rock. And it's almost like walking along the edge of the Grand Canyon from up above. And then you fall back into the trees and circle around more lakes. And it's just endless. You're imbued in so much drama, beauty. It's absolutely one of the great trails of all time.
I've hiked this trail personally when I was down there, and this is what I wrote about it. 4,000 feet above the valley floor, sweating, gulping, and smiling from ear to ear, I had the seminal Patagonian moment. Half a dozen Andean condors, the largest bird in the world, soaring above me, a herd of red fur guanacos racing below, and all around, color like I'd never seen. Emerald lakes, silver ice fields, rolling jagged peaks, brown, ochre, and red. All of Patagonia's wonders on one solitary hike.
From the time we acquire something, that act is an act of rewilding, because you're taking an ecosystem. A, if it's in good shape, you're just taking it out of the possibility of threats. B, if that territory needs restoration, actually, you have to step in and help it restore itself. Patagonia National Park, there were a lot of problems, not only in the landscape, but over 100 years of grazing. The puma and cougar population had been knocked back very severely. The Waymo deer, there are only 1,500 of them left in the world, and that park has about 10% of that population, so it's very key. So we started working on that and bringing back nyandus, the lesser rheas. You can see puma all over the place now. I mean, they're sleeping on the stairs of the museum now. It's amazing.
Walking that trail, you can almost hear the land humming with growth, the trees drawing in deeper breaths, the grasslands uncrumpling and reaching for the skies. And as the park slowly rewilded, their vision was rapidly coming to fruition. Doug would often speak of national parks as being one of the greatest expressions of democracy that a country could realize, preserving the masterpieces of a nation for all its citizens. They didn't want to just sit on the jewels of a country like a dragon on its hoard. This beauty they had cherished was for everyone. And so, after decades of hard work, of criticism, mistrust, perseverance against all odds, the day came when it was time to give it all away.
We were donating 5 national parks and enlarging 3 others, all in one deal with one president. So I had put all of our eggs in one basket, which of course we're never supposed to do. But I felt like with President Michelle Bachelet that this was the moment. I didn't know that we would get this moment again. And, down to the second when all the documents were signed at this big ceremony, I never was sure that it would happen. So for me personally, it was like walking the knife edge because I was all in. It was all or nothing. I was just going to go for it. And it was the biggest donation in history anywhere.
In total, the Tompkins Foundation donated 1 million acres of wildland to the Chilean people, and President Bachelet matched that with a further 10 million acres, a total size 3 times larger than Yosemite and Yellowstone combined. It was a triumph, but it was also tinged with sadness, because Doug wasn't there. In 2015, a couple of years earlier, he and 5 friends set off on a kayaking trip. On the 4th day, the winds started howling, kicking up 8-foot waves in every direction. Doug was in a double kayak with his friend Rick Ridgway, a very well-known adventurer in his own right. Suddenly, a wave hit them side on and they capsized. And in water that cold, they had at most 20 minutes, half an hour, to make it to the shore. Rick was rescued and hauled out in time. Doug wasn't. Hypothermia set in. He lost his strength and died.
And coming off the sudden death of Doug and the emotional freight train that was, it's a very poignant time. Our best friends were down there from the States and other countries, and probably the only thing we were able to do is to reflect on what was actually happening, because it was 100% in the moment, thinking of a backup plan in case it didn't go. And there were a lot of elements that could have fallen out in the last 5 minutes before everything was signed. So I'm so proud of everybody. And one of the reasons that we could do it, and certainly in my case, to lead it, is that after Doug left, I was fearless. And that's still true. So if the worst thing that you can imagine happens to you happens, then it changes how you see everything you do.
All in, like Kris said, no limits. But this was never just about preserving land and walking away. It was about creating an economically sustainable vision of conservation in which all could benefit, one that would last for generations long after they're gone. A few months before he passed away, Doug had an idea of how to do it. He called it the route of parks.
Going up and down the Carretera Austral, from Portimont all the way down to the Straits of Magellan. There's so many incredible individuals, but communities, and it's this, I call it the string of pearls, but it was never held together. So, boy, we really struggled with it. How do we do it? How do we get 60 communities to buy into this idea, and how do we make it real? Because it's one thing to have an idea, but to actually go 2,700 kilometers with an idea and link all this stuff up together, it required a lot of thinking on our part and a lot of really just kind of making it up, talking to the different regional governments and national government. But even for them, it was like, what would this look like? And we just had this team who just took it on. They had a little, we called them pan de molde, a little tiny van that looks like a bread pan, and it was painted with the iconography of the southern region, and posters and all sorts of things to begin to articulate the connectivity between the 60 communities and these 17 national parks. And today it's extraordinary. We always are working to get Ruta de los Parques into the national and international iconography of Chile. And now it is. We have, the government, they're very involved in the route of parks. There's highway signage now that refers to it, and it's the route of parks. And that's how it was born.
In America, for every dollar invested in national parks, $6 to $10 come back to the local economy. If Kris and her team could replicate something of that success here, the route of parks could be a symbol across the world for a more sustainable way of resource development, and one in which all could benefit. This is more than a tourism project. This is a flag in the ground, and their vision is growing.
As I've gotten older now, we're taking on some new stuff that even I wouldn't be sure, is that a good thing to try? And the world is burning. It is not a time to sit on our hands, anybody's hands. And so if you're ever going to make the Hail Mary pass in conservation, rewilding, this is the time to do it. And that's what we're doing. So we started asking ourselves, well, how do we increase our impact? And what should we really be focused on? And I just have felt that we need to be doing what we're doing inside the parks. That's never going to go away from that kind of work. But let's talk about and lead the way on reconnecting the southern cone in South America to the rest of the continent. So we are working now through the base in Argentina. We're working with Brazil, Paraguay, Bolivia, Uruguay to expand and reconnect these territories biologically. That's kind of a new generation in my own mind, what conservation and rewilding has to do. We have to be thinking faster, much larger on this continental scale. How do you bring these territories back together? It's incumbent on us to make the Hail Mary pass.
From the top of the Lagunas Altas Trail in Patagonia National Park, there is a view at the end of that hike looking down across the valley, impossible turquoise lakes, ice fields, monochrome peaks, jet black and stark white snow. And winding through it all is a solitary dirt road as faint as a pencil mark in that vastness. That's the route of parks. That's what I went to Patagonia to drive and write about, and it was one of the best trips of my life. And I think the reason why is that the Tompkins project is more than just a string of national parks as we know it. There are countless unclimbed peaks, endless miles of uncharted terrain. Bruce Chatwin called Patagonia the furthest place to which man has walked from his place of origin. And that makes it feel different. There should be places we have not stood. There should be empty spaces on the map. But for Kris, there was one space she had to fill. There's a mountain in Patagonia National Park which Doug had dreamed of climbing for years. He had tried and been forced back. But eventually, at the age of 65, he did make it to the top. And as tradition, the first person to set foot on a summit gets to name it. For Doug, there was only one name that would do. Cerro Christine.
I'm not sure I ever had a choice in trying to climb Cerro Christine. I mean, if your husband names a peak after you, you ought to take a shot at it, at least go up and see what it's like. And I do have that kind of personality. So I just love being up there. But I tell you, when you get up high in these places, because we flew so often, I knew the terrain like the back of my hand. But when you have to walk across them, or I should say when you get to walk across them, and how much time it takes to dive down into one valley and climb 4,000 feet back up and then dive into the next one. It's so good for us. For people like me who need to be, have a heel on their neck once in a while to slow down and really look at life, your own life, and the life of all life on earth, and listen to it and feel it and ache because of it. I think these are the days in our lives that we remember. It's not all the days that went so well. It's the days when you're miserable, when you think you can't go one more step, and then you swear at somebody and then you keep going. Those are the days that form our spines. They have formed my spine. It's a bloody blessing that we've been able to do what we've been doing. My whole life is one long series of blessings. Hardships too, but in the aggregate, a wild life.
In the preface to the book, Kris writes, "Our survival depends not on us returning to the cave, but stepping forward into our true place, where humans are not at the center of the circle of life, but rather are a part of the whole." But she doesn't wish for that future. She's fighting for it, tooth and claw. Her life and work inspires us. It makes us believe that we might yet figure this stuff out. But that's dangerous, she says. She doesn't want us to feel hope. You have to earn hope, she says, through hard work and action, because hope on its own is not enough. But maybe beauty is. Doug said, "If anything can save the world, I'd put my money on beauty, because a world without beauty is not worth living in. But the only way to appreciate the beauty of the world is to immerse yourself in it. Then you know it. And if you know it, you love it. And if you love it, you protect it. And if you protect it, well, then maybe we'll earn the hope to see us through. We are led by beauty," Kris writes, "as expressed by wholeness, expressed by dignity, and by the love of all things wild." Thank you so much, Kris, for taking the time to speak with us today and share your story. You're truly an inspiration. And as much as it's great to talk about Patagonia, you really need to see it to believe it. So that book, Patagonia National Park, Chile, is gorgeous. The photos are amazing, and you can find it wherever books are sold, or head over to patagonia.com and just search up the books there. You can also learn more about Kris and her foundation at tompkinsconservation.org. We'll have that information in the show notes, so just click that link. And one other thing, we share these stories to delight and inspire, but I think it's incredible when our listeners take that inspiration one step further and do something about it. So whether you want to spread the word about Tompkins Conservation or Rewilding or Chile or Patagonia or any other local NGO or nonprofit, or maybe it's just about the beauty of the world and inspiring someone else to get out there and fall in love with it, go ahead and do that. Because like Kris, if you fight tooth and claw, you might just change the world. So until next time, keep leaning into your wildlife, keep falling in love and doing something about it, and keep searching for the moments that form your spine. Because the more we look for wonder or beauty in the world, the more the beauty and wonder of the world becomes a part of who we are. Dare to be truly alive. This episode was produced by Armchair Productions. Find our other shows at armchair-productions.com. Jenny Allison did the guest booking and wrote this episode along with me. I produced the show. Charles Tyree does the audio editing and sound design, and our theme music was written by the artist Sweet Chat. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
Quick question. Do you want travel tips from people who have actually been there?
Our show is co-hosted by Tim Johnson, an award-winning travel journalist who's been to more than 145 countries around the world. And I'm David Brody, the other co-host who's been travel podcasting for 20 years while traveling to 50-plus countries around the world.
In about 10 or 20 minutes per show, we break down a destination with the kind of insight you usually only get from long guidebooks or hours of research.
So if you want expert advice, zero fluff, and travel inspiration that you can actually use, search for Travel in 10 wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also find us at boyescape.com.
Hi, I'm Pauline Fromer, host of the Fromers Travel Podcast. We post new episodes weekly, detailing the kinds of money-saving tips and cultural insights that will make your trips richer without making you significantly poorer. We do so by interviewing real travel experts like TV host Samantha Brown, Fromers authors from around the globe, and such public figures as Free Solo's Alex Honnold. It's a fun travel party. I hope you can join us.